Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right.
I myself am strange and unusual.
Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea, because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven, you guys. We're so happy to have you here. It's funny, I have to say that. Thank you so much, Sharon, for recording again today. This is our third episode of recording today so that I can take my anniversary off next week and we don't lose out on having episodes for you guys.
Yes, this is we've never done more than 3, so this is like as much as we've done in one sitting, but like, I think it's a telltale sign to the fact that we love what we do, because I'm not bummed out, I'm not inconvenienced, like this is just fun.
Right, exactly.
So we would not want to be recording if this was like, oh, another one. But I'm literally like, yay, another one. Here we go.
Exactly.
So we're going to be talking about ghosts and urban legends of Alabama today. That's probably why I'm excited. I love talking about ghosts.
Me too.
It's one of my favorite topics. I feel like it was really what introduced me into everything else. It's what introduced me into Ouija boards, the occult, witchcraft, into UFOs, like all of it, really. So
yeah,
thank you to, what was it? I think it was Fox
Jacob.
Kids. Jacob. Well, thank you to Jacob, actually. Yeah, I was gonna say thank you to Fox Kids for providing me with lots of reenactment ghost shows as a kid, because that's literally my gateway. But thank you to Jacob for sending us the suggestion for today's episode, because he is a native Alabamian? What is it?
Yeah.
What do you call that?
I don't know.
We're Oregonians, so people always think that word is weird when they hear it. Oregonians.
What the heck is that?
Yeah.
I have a couple of news articles. Is that cool?
Yeah, so let's start with the news, and shout out to Jacob. Thanks for giving us the inspo on today's episode.
Yes, and thank you to you, Sharon, for even wanting to do ghosts in the first place and your love of ghosts.
Yay! Thanks for doing this with me too. So, yay.
Yes. So my first news, actually both my news articles come from Coast to Coast, which I've been following Coast to Coast, I feel like, for a long time. How about you?
Yes, it wasn't until my late 20s that I was introduced to Coast AM. I was really late on the bandwagon, but for anyone who might be younger and not realize that there's a thing called AM radio, there is a long-standing radio program that talks about all of the stuff that we talk about. They'll talk about an episode on shadow people, demons, possessions, aliens, Roswell, and it's like every night at 2 a.m., and that's just part of the fun, is that you have to stay up till 2 a.m. to hear this radio show.
Right. And they used to do it on like broadcast TV. I feel like I would hear it on our local TV station. But it was just like you would see a black screen and hear their voices.
So old-timey. And it's a lot of fun, because they'll have segments of like open line kind of callers. So like all the crazy conspirators and people who've seen weird things on their farms are calling in. And it just gets really, really out there. So shout out to Coast to Coast AM for being another inspiration.
Yes. So I'm linking to these down below so you guys can at least see the pictures. And so Sharon, so you can see too.
Okay, perfect.
The first one I have is this story out of Japan where a fisherman caught a multicolored fish, and it looks fake. It looks absolutely fake, but this thing is real.
It looks like rainbow eucalyptus. Remember that rainbow eucalyptus tree? That like you peel back the bark and it's like fluorescent blues. This fish is fluorescent blue.
Yes, and it's an actual real fish called a surge rosse, and these come out of actual water. And so they did a catch and release, so don't think by any means that they kept this fish or anything. They caught it and released it.
Wait, did we know about this? They didn't discover it?
They didn't discover it. We knew about it. The world did, but they're hard to catch, and most people don't catch them. You can see them when you're like swimming near a reef, or if you're snorkeling near a reef. And so these people just happened to catch one by accident.
It reminds me of that little kid book where like that multicolored shiny rainbow fish, and the rainbow fish like shares all of his scales, so like everyone's special. I don't know what kind of lesson we have to learn that we're all special. But it's so cute and rainbow fishy.
It is. It's adorable. I love it so much. And definitely the neon colors. So I guess it comes in different shades of colors like that, but they definitely hang out near a reef and kind of warmer water, I guess. I just thought it was so cool. It's not paranormal by any means, but really adorable.
I mean, it's always fun to just talk about how our world is bright, unique, and colorful, and it's like fun to remind each other like how magical it can be, even in the mundane sense of like this is a known species of fish, but hey, remember how cool it is. So hey, thanks for bringing that to the table.
You're welcome. Plus, I want us to keep an open mind, because if something like that can be real, why can't all the other stuff we talk about be real?
Exactly. So what else do you have on the agenda?
Okay, so this one is kind of creepy. My son actually showed this one to me, and then I just blew it off and then came back to it when I knew we were doing another episode. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's on Coast to Coast. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. But there is a child-sized bat that they caught a picture of hanging upside down. And it literally looks like a child hanging upside down in a bat costume.
Okay, it's huge in my opinion.
Huge.
I'm the type of person who's like, oh, bats are so cute. Like I like fruit bats. I think they're just like so charming. And of course, I don't ever have to like really live in a territory where they're like flying at me. But if a bat this size and I walked in a room and it was hanging there, oh, I would be scared. I'd be like, oh shit, like it would take me back.
And it's literally the size of a child, and I guess this is in the Philippines. So I looked it up. It's actually a giant golden crowned flying fox. My son told me that's what it was, so I went and looked up the deets about it. So apparently these things can get huge. They can get let's see, they can have a wingspan of up to 5.6 feet, so almost 6 feet long of a wingspan, and can get up to almost 5 feet tall.
Wow. What do they eat? Do you think they eat fruit? Okay.
Yeah, fruit.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. Seeds.
Man.
Creepy looking though. But if this can be real, what about Mothman?
Right, because whenever we would research the kind of cryptids that are flying, someone always wants to say it's a crane, it's some sort of leftover dinosaur. Now we could say, oh, it's this giant bat.
Exactly.
This is just another weird creature. Oh my God, like I'm looking at people who are hanging them kind of as like a decoration, and it's just creepy.
It's creepy looking, right?
Yeah, very vampiric.
Mm-hmm.
So animals are weird, even the ones we know about, not just the cryptids.
Absolutely.
Okay, so should we get into our ghostly discussion?
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome. So today we're just going to go back and forth on some Alabama haunts and legends. Wendy, why don't you start us off?
All right. So I will tell you that our listener, he sent in this link to ranker.com, and we're going to list it below. We did not do every story on the list because as I was locating some of the places, I found that either there was no validity to the story or it was just not something that I found interesting, unfortunately. And I feel bad for saying that, but it was just because that I wanted to give you guys some really cool Alabama stories. And I feel like the ones that we did find are pretty cool. So the first one that I came across that is on the list is called Consolation Primitive Baptist Church and Cemetery. Now this one, it was kind of interesting because I took the ranker list as kind of a base, and then I went in and did a little more research. And as I was trying to research this one, it actually came up with two different churches, both having a graveyard. But the one that's haunted is the Consolation Primitive Baptist Church and Cemetery. And the ranker story says this abandoned Oakey Street Methodist Church, better known as Consolation Church, is found in Red Level, Alabama, which I did find to be true. And it was built in 1850. And there are some very outlandish stories from locals that kind of go from seeing hellhounds, seeing ghosts, seeing orb activities, hearing banshee screams, hearing banging. A lot of people were saying that they saw remnants of sacrifices inside the old church, which I did find a realistic video, or not a realistic video, a real video of somebody who went in back in 2011, and I am going to link it. It shows the inside of the church is just a wooden room, and all over the floor is dried blood and what look like scratches. And that same team also took pictures of like orbs, and they kept saying that they heard like sounds in the graveyard, which I didn't actually hear anything because they play music instead of actually what they were actually hearing. Which I was kind of disappointed about. But I kind of watched video after video, looked at different things. The building church itself actually was burnt down in an arson in 2015, so you can no longer go inside the church. You can just go to the graveyard. A lot of the locals are really afraid to go there because there were stories that when the church was actually in service and they were using it as a church, that people or ghosts would come in and try to frighten the people to leave the space. Until it finally closed to the public at some point in the 1900s.
Why is there a trend of vandalizing churches and cemeteries and historical places? What's with that?
I think that came about in the 80s, honestly. I think that trend started in the 80s and going into the 90s. I
read as far back as the 60s.
Really? Okay. I wasn't thinking it went back that far. I was thinking most people did it, like, especially when it goes to sacrifices, people would do sacrificial magic, which I didn't think existed, but apparently now that I follow different groups in Oregon, it does exist. There are people who still do sacrifices.
What?
I didn't think that still existed.
You're saying you found an Oregonian group who's like, hey, we got some chickens we're sacrificing on Saturday?
Something like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Animal,
yes. Not human, don't worry.
I just wanted to know what kind of forums you're in.
No. I just didn't think that stuff existed, but apparently it does still exist. So it's not something I am really into. I will definitely give my own blood to the gods now, but I don't think I would ever sacrifice an animal. So it was just an interesting story.
Just to,
Yeah.
I wasn't eating meat for a minute and I felt really good about it, but now I'm eating meat again. And so I still feel like if I'm going to eat the meat, if you do a sacrifice, let's say in a ritual, what if you are just like, here's a portion for the god and then you can eat some, that way it's not all going to rest or to waste? Or do you really think it has to be, here's a sacrifice and then it all goes to the god? Because I myself am a very anti-meat industry, and I realize I am now a part of it by purchasing meat, but It's not a good way for any of these animals to die. And if you're doing it in a ritual sense, what if you could guarantee a better and quick and more humane death? Not that I know how to do that or would want to do that or witness that, but
there are hunters who do that same kind of thing.
Exactly.
So I guess in that sense, it would be okay as long as you're not wasting it. So like if you are giving it to the gods and you are cooking it, because like when I cook my food, I do it in magic, and we do leave an offering. So
I've just never left the whole thing, but maybe that's me being lazy.
Just a portion of it.
Right. Like if you pour a little bit of spirits for the spirits, you're just going to pour like a shot glass or,
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, Consolation Primitive Baptist Church. It sounded kind of creepy. I did find a lot of really interesting stories. A lot of the firsthand accounts that I came across were kind of weird, like sounded like, okay, yeah, you guys just heard a ghost bumping. Why are you getting freaked out about it? But that's just my own personal opinion.
Yeah, because if you we have to remember that now we're talking about Alabama. I've never been to Alabama. I've only really heard about Alabama through the lens of one person I follow on YouTube and like Twitch and stuff, and they've talked about it as a very small town mentality. There's like one way that people expect you to be and present yourself, and so it sounds like a very superstitious and maybe, you know, very southern old school mentality. So if they're hearing things and seeing things like hellhounds and banshees, this all sounds very religious, superstitious. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is the lens that we are looking at these legends from.
Right.
I believe anyway. I do see here that someone vandalized the historic church by making their own pentagram very poorly on the floor. And I have a feeling that they were not satanic or pagan. They're probably just like, this is cool, right?
Right, exactly.
You never know.
But there were sacrifices that I believe that were done in that church based on the video that I had found. There was blood all over the ground, and I could tell that it was blood because I have blood in my garage on the ground.
Whoa,
that was here when we moved in.
Let's make sure that we don't make you come across like a murderer.
No, it was in there when we moved into the garage, but I knew that it was blood and not paint.
I love how you drop this stuff like it's so normal. Why was there a pile of blood in your garage? What happened?
I don't know what happened. It was already dried when we moved in.
Did you get a discount? Was it super cheap?
No, it was not.
Are they supposed to disclose to you when you have a place that someone died in?
It was never disclosed that anybody died here. No.
So someone, oh my God. Okay.
To me, it looked like somebody hurt themselves and maybe a little bit of blood was on the ground and dried there.
Okay. I'm going to let it be.
I'm not going to say a substantial amount or anything like that.
Okay. So this place is weird. And honestly, the whole time you would say Constellation Church, I wanted to think of Constellation Church, which sounds cooler. And makes me think of like Stonehenge, which just like lines up with the stars. Like that's a constellation church.
Right.
But it sounds like, honestly, just tragedy befell this building and it didn't deserve that.
Yeah, because I couldn't find any, why it would be haunted in the first place, what happened there, other than the fact that it's attached to a cemetery and that's where the haunting was supposedly coming from, which, if I put my personal spin on it, I know that there are ghosts that sometimes frequent a graveyard. However, I don't believe that they haunt the place the same way that that was described here. Other than orbs. I totally fully believe orbs.
Yeah, I don't believe in banshees and hellhounds, but
no. I mean, I've seen ghost dogs before.
You have, so what do I know?
But I don't call them hellhounds by any means.
There you go.
Ghost dogs.
So again, that's that lens that we're getting the information from.
Right.
Okay, so that's locale number 1. Let's take it to number 2.
Okay. Go for it.
Through the ranker list, I came across Crybaby Hollow.
Okay.
Not the Johnny Depp movie, so don't get excited. The legend of Crybaby Hollow, it kind of is a bridge legend, which we've talked about before, how bridges are paranormal and how there's always some sort of urban legend surrounding one tiny bridge in a town. It just happens. And this bridge is deep in the woods on Kyle Road in Hartselle, Alabama. There's a lot of legends that go with the bridge. The most often repeated one is that of the Crybaby Hollow. So this story is in the 1800s that a horse-drawn wagon carrying an infant was traveling across the bridge, and then the wheel snapped. So the wagon turned over and the infant fell into the creek and drowned. So some reports basically that they hear the crying near the bridge at night. And so the local lore is that if you put a candy bar on the bridge and leave it, a small bite will be gone when you come back, which just cheapens the whole tragic tale. It's just so silly. Yeah, if you leave a candy bar, I'm going to take a bite. Like, I mean, that could be anything. Yeah. I don't believe that, honestly. I would just imagine a tiny baby ghost would not be interested in your candy bar and then leaving and eating, having one physical bite gone from it.
Yeah.
But this is coming from a person who leaves offerings around Samhain for their deceased for them to eat. So it's like, what is with my brain that I can't comprehend it all the time, but I do these things. Yeah. I've just never seen like a physical evidence of a bite. Because if I'm leaving food, I usually will put it outside and then it's just, it's the animals in my mind.
Sure.
With alcohol, I have seen alcohol go down on its own, and I can either say it's evaporating or the spirit drank it. So like I
Mhm.
just am having a hard time with the whole candy bar bite.
Sure. I get that.
What are your thoughts on
I
Crybaby
don't
Hollow?
know. I think it's a fun little legend. We'll just say that.
If you did hear the crying baby though, like that's something you've experienced, isn't it, in
Yes.
your own house? Like I've
Yes.
heard a crying baby actually. Now that I remember, that's the one time
Right.
I heard a ghost was a crying baby.
So I
Oh,
do.
God.
I mean, certainly I could get behind that. I think the legend part of leaving the food behind, obviously, since it is on a bridge outside, could be anything. It could be another human for all you know, eating that. So I don't know if I could get behind the candy bar part, but definitely the thought of a crying baby. Sure.
What do you think the who's producing a baby cry? Because to me that sounds like a trickster trying to lure you in. Like
Or a
something
real
that wants
baby.
you.
Mm-hmm. Or a real baby.
Or a real baby.
Mm-hmm. What if, I mean, we've got to think at the time period, maybe, when did you say it initially happened? Was
They're
there a
just
year?
saying 1800s.
Okay. So what if a baby died in childbirth and didn't get a proper burial, and because of the time period, they were just traveling from place to place and had to throw it in the river?
Okay. So that's another horrible way of the baby drowning. It's basically
No, I mean the baby was already dead.
well, yeah, I
So
guess. It's
instead of
disposable.
giving it a yeah, so instead of giving it a proper burial, which I don't see a family not giving their baby a proper burial, but
So that would is what you're saying. That kind of a tragedy could instigate
could.
baby cries.
Yes. Hmm.
I don't always know what it was because when I heard the baby cry, I was in a home that was haunted. There were no babies in. And why would I just hear a baby ghost crying? My brother actually told me the other day he was in our house and he heard a baby crying while he was like playing a game of cards and like no one reacted to it and he was the only one that heard it and like I just was kind of like, and then walked away and didn't say anything. But like that's kind of how it was for me too.
I wonder if it just wanted you to hear it for some reason, which would be a trickster. Because I guess in my house, we all heard it. We all heard the baby.
Okay,
So,
when it was me, I was with my ex. He didn't hear it.
mhm.
So it is that's where it becomes like almost phantom like. And
Right.
I've got Hellier on the brain today, but like when we were
I
watching the
know.
documentary Hellier, they talked about how there was this crying coming from a cornfield or something like that, or just the mountains, and like if you went towards it, it would lead to like danger or trouble, and not to
Mhm.
go towards it.
Which would be trickstery, which wouldn't be ghost at all, most likely. It would be something else,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
other type of energy.
right.
Because I feel like I like to think that I know enough about spirits now to know that there are certain things that anything that has to do with negative connotations is most likely not a human spirit.
Yeah, because there's way more out there than what we even know.
Right. Exactly.
So Crybaby Hollow, I don't think I even found anything saying that people get negative feelings.
Gotcha.
At least they're leaving offerings. That actually is a nice
Yeah.
sentiment.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
All right, what's the next one here?
Next one I have is Sloth Furnace. So this one you may have heard about or seen on Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, that kind of thing. A lot of people have gone there before. The story is, or Sloth Furnace is in Birmingham, Alabama. It provided, it was kind of a place where they used to make all the steel to build skyscrapers, automobiles, throughout the 18 and 1900s. A lot of the local lore surrounding the company is regarding the tale of James Slag Wormwood. And Slag was the supposed foreman of the furnace during the 1900s and was known to kind of force the workers to endure brutal conditions so that he could meet his deadlines. And so the workers worked long hours. They didn't sleep very much. They were exposed to temperatures over 100 degrees. Um, During the time that he was a part of the company, 47 workers died due to mishaps and accidents. the mistreatment went on until he lost his footing and fell to his own death in a pool of melted iron. Even though it was ruled as an accident, other people think that maybe somebody pushed him into the slag to kill him. And
Wow.
it's said that his spirit lingers, and sometimes you can hear angry voices, and it's saying, "Get back to work." Or there's mysterious burns. Some people reported seeing a half man, half demon lurking on the grounds. And I know from watching the shows on Sloth Furnace, the different ghost hunting shows, a lot of times what they heard was sounds of people working. And maybe, I think I remember ghost hunters caught a voice. So I do think that this place is haunted. It's sad that that many people died during that just to meet a deadline.
Right. It is just not even considering people's lives. Like that's just
Right.
it's
about the
lives
bottom
over
dollar.
value or over money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Money over lives. Very, very tragic.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen any of the episodes of the Ghost Hunter shows on it before, so I had to like Google it to get a scope of the place. And there's something that, to me anyway, that looks really pretty about the, I don't know, the orangey, rusty red pipes here and the old structures. And it looks like it's really popping. Like they actually do concerts like right next to it, and they even have haunted houses here. So it's like the energy of this place, it's still getting a lot of energy and vibes from people.
Right. Yeah, because I think they do ghost tours there now. So, yeah. Yeah, for sure, a hip hop in place. Definitely a lot of people checking it out to see if they can find Mr. James Slag Wormwood. So, creepy indeed. Creepy indeed. I definitely think this is a haunted one. I think there's enough information out there, and enough ghost enthusiasts have done enough research to find that it really does have some sort of energy. But whether it's residual or not, I'm not sure. I definitely think that there's no demon.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe it was like workers just like replaying their day to day, or if they're more intelligent and like communicating with questions in EVP sessions.
Right. I think I recall it being a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's probably a pretty cool place to check out if you're in that area of Alabama. I'm sure locals enjoy at least the fact that there's like music going on and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Super cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to my next one on my list, which is the Dead Children's Playground, which just has a great ring to it. This Alabama playground is found within the grounds of Maple Hill Cemetery. So that's pretty cool to actually have a playground on a cemetery. I think that's actually nice.
I've never heard of that before.
Me neither.
I have never thought of that. Is pretty cool.
Right? Like it's kind of amazing because I'd want to play there if I was a kid. You get like a twofer. You get a little bit of spooky ghosts and you get a swing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're a teenager going through your ghost hunting phase, I'm going to the park, Mom. There's just a reason for you to be at the cemetery. It's great. But the Maple Hill Cemetery is actually the oldest and the biggest cemetery in the state. So I think that's saying something. The little playground area, it's actually in the corner of the property. Its official name is Drost Park. And I guess given the fact that it's on a graveyard, people are like, well, no, duh, it's haunted. But this is one that actually sounds like it is haunted and more than just urban legends and vibes and stuff. So people report seeing swings move on their own and hearing children giggling. Apparently you can even see and like hear feet running through the park and like kicking up dust as if the kids are still running around, and the swings will go back and forth all by themselves with nobody pushing them. And is that not what our listener had experienced?
Yeah, he said that he experienced that. No wind either. Yeah, no wind either. So
that's awesome that we have someone who was able to tell us that that does happen there, that they're seeing the swings go by themselves. So really, really cool. I wonder if they were able to take any pictures. Some people who take pictures there at night will see orbs in their photos. And then the question comes up, like, why is the cemetery haunted? So people will say, well, it's just the kids that are buried at that cemetery. They just run over here from their graves and play. And then the other theory that I don't really think has, to my knowledge, background to back it up, they say that there was a string of child abductions and murders. And some of my sources said this happened in the 60s. Some of my sources said this happened in the 40s. It's probably just like urban legend. But this apparent child abductor would dump the bodies in the field where the park is. And there's trails that lead away from the field into these old mining shafts. And in those shafts, there's legends associated with the killer who lived up there and would like kill the kids up there and like watch the people down below and that kind of thing.
Gosh.
So that's a really creepy legend. And I don't know if it's true that there's mining shafts there. Like, I didn't even think to Google Earth that or try to figure that out if that's true.
I'm sure it's true. They did used to do a lot of mining in Alabama, from what I understand. So I bet it's true.
It sounds like it could be.
Mm-hmm. But still, I hate murder, but
Right, but I mean, it causes for great ghost stories. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you were a kid that was murdered, would your ghost really go about running around a playground? Like, it's weird because clearly this place is haunted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like the idea of it being the fact that, children die, unfortunately. It could be for many, many things, and they are buried in a graveyard. So I like the thought of the ghosts having somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe when they see other children there playing on the equipment too, they're more inclined to want to do it as well. They're like, sweet, maybe I can make a friend.
Right. Like, it's a really sweet, benevolent activity, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right. What is your next location?
So my next one is going to be Sulphur Creek Trestle, which is in between Athens and Elkmont, Alabama. And it was the site of a large battle in the Civil War from September 23rd through the 25th in the year of 1864. And a train used to go through that area. And the Union soldiers kind of had a fort alongside the trestle. I think it looks like there were 1,000 soldiers that were stationed there. And at one point through the whole time that they were stationed there, they were defending the trestle from the Confederate soldiers. So these were Union soldiers on Confederate soil protecting this because they didn't want the Confederates to have it. And 200 soldiers died during the battle on the Union side. No Confederate soldiers died. Then subsequently, all of the 800 soldiers that were left were surrendered themselves to the Confederates. They were taken prisoner, taken down to the Mississippi River to be transported to the prison camps. They boarded the Sultana steamboat, which then exploded and sunk, killing all 800 remaining soldiers. Wow. This is a true story. This isn't fake. This really happened.
Right.
So today, the place is a historical site. The tracks are gone. It's just a walking trail, so sometimes people will walk it. The horses will go along it. It's a pretty cool place. Our listener goes there for walks sometimes, and he sent me a bunch of pictures. He said in the nighttime, he was able to see orbs, and in the daytime, he heard some voices. Sometimes his dog barks for no reasons. And some other stories that I read of people going there said that they will sometimes see shadows of soldiers, horses fading into the trees as they're walking. So like they'll see a horse that looks like it's real and then it just kind of fades into the tree and disappears. Sometimes you can hear cannon fire. And around the Battle of the Anniversary in September, a strange fog kind of sets in and you can see the ghosts more prominently in the fog.
Wow.
Yeah. So sad story of what happened in reality. Cool ghost story though.
Right. Yeah. It's like we're just so far removed from the actual human life that the ghost legend just lives on.
Right. But 1,000 people died in separate areas. So 200 in that specific area died, 800 in another. So it's very possible that those soldiers keep coming back to the area from where they were captured.
Right. No doubt a huge amount of suffering and pain just radiating out. And that always will tie in with our theory on war.
Right.
And what kind of paranormal activity stems from a tragedy that just rings out over time.
Right.
Whether it be ghosts or like time slips and all that crazy shit we've been getting into.
Sure.
Should I go on to our next one?
Yeah, let's do our next one.
Okay, so this one is a real death that led to a lot of like urban legends and weird paranormal stuff. And this is the story of the ghost of Sally Carter. It's said to be the most famous ghost story in Huntsville, Alabama. And Sally Carter died in November 28th, 1837. And this was 3 weeks before she had just turned 16. She had died at Cedarhurst, which is a plantation-style home that her family built in 1825. She had been visiting her sister, and she actually died in the upstairs room after an illness, because it's the 1800s and that shit happens. Medicine. So the story of Sally Carter was one that just was told over and over in that town. For some reason, the idea of this young woman dying like right before she's about to turn 16 was just such a tragedy. So it's just interesting that, you know, after all those years, that death just kept ringing on and on. And to the fact that like visiting her grave for people of that age, like 15 going on 16, it became like a rite of passage and this urban legend thing to do. And it said that children would ride their bikes to her grave so frequently that there was like a bike path, like just in the grass that was made from all the kids just traversing the track to go see her. Yeah. And the Cedarhurst became like a place that you could like go have functions at and do things at. And in that Cedarhurst, there was actual ghost and paranormal activity, and probably still is. So some of the things that were happening are chairs were being pulled out from under people. Violin cases would mysteriously just fall over. And it's reported that a woman walking down the stairs fell, and she actually was like, somebody pushed me. So there's a lot of just like activity tied to that home that I probably didn't even get to look into, but that's just like a little bit of it. And over the years, like they say, the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot of kids still visiting the grave, and that's when the vandalism started going on. And so they decided to just move her grave because the fire department would be called, the police would be called, like people would just be over there causing problems.
Dang.
And they actually started a fire in the garage of Cedarhurst on one of these occasions to go see her grave. So that's when they kind of like, okay, we're moving her, and we're not going to tell anyone. So they moved her sister, and the sister's 3 kids in 1982. And like I said, they didn't tell anyone so that people wouldn't bother them anymore. So that's kind of just like the basic legend. Then the legend kind of kicks it up a notch with a little bookend of paranormal activity. So in 1919, this paranormal event happened where there was a boy, his name, I don't even think I have here, but he was 17 years old. He's sleeping in Sally's like old room, I guess, where she stayed when she was passing or whatever. And he had a dream, and there was a thunderstorm going on, I think that night in the real world, but then Sally pops up in his dream. And she tells him that her tombstone has fallen during the thunderstorm that's happening outside. And so when he woke up the next day, he walked to Sally Carter's gravesite, and he actually saw that it had really fallen over. And so she had come to him and revealed to where her new grave was, I guess. Or was this before the grave had moved? No, this was before the grave.
Yeah, it was before the grave.
So I guess he got some people laughing at him when he, like his family members, when he first woke up and told him the story. But then when he went, he was the last. He had the last laugh.
Yeah. Believable to me because I've had dreams of ghosts telling me things. So I get it.
It's interesting that she would care so much about that instance, but she's not coming to people to be like, hey, someone's burning our garage. Like,
right.
It's important.
Maybe it was the fact. Right. But maybe he was enlightened enough to see the message and
Yeah.
also sleeping in her space.
Right. And he's young. He's of like that age
Hmm.
where poltergeist activity would usually happen. And yeah, they say it's usually girls, but why not boys too?
Yeah. Just because you don't get a period.
Right? Doesn't mean that Sally isn't going to come to you in your dreams.
Right.
So that's kind of the gist of that one. It does sound like an actual haunting mixed with urban
Yeah,
legend.
for sure. I love it. I love it a lot.
Yay.
So my that I have next is not a ghost story, but it is something paranormal, and I thought it was worth mentioning.
Okay.
It's more of a legend. So it's called The Disappearance of Orion Williamson. So Orion Williamson was a farmer who lived with his wife and son in a farmhouse just outside of Selma, Alabama. And on an afternoon in July of 1854, he was sitting on his front porch with his family, just having a discussion. Several neighbors were passing by at that moment. One set of family was called the Wrens. They were on foot, and then the Bierce family, and they were in a carriage. So Orion, when he saw them, it kind of triggered something in his mind, and he knew he needed to go across the way to tell the neighbor people something. So he stood up from his seat. He left his home to head that way. At that very moment, the Bierce's horse began to act strangely, and their horse collapsed, crashing their carriage. And then across the way in the field, they turned around and they could see Orion wave to his neighbors. He took a step forward and then vanished into thin air. Just vanished into thin air. So no one really could believe what was going on. The Williamsons, the Wrens, and the Bierces, they ran to the spot where Orion disappeared, and they searched and they couldn't find any sign of him. So, but what they did notice is the spot that he disappeared from, there was no grass. The grass had disappeared in that spot.
Oh, shit.
So after hours of searching, Orion's family and neighbors went to get more help. And so they formed a search party of about 300 people where they combed every inch of the field that he disappeared from. They even brought in some bloodhounds. No sign of Orion materialized, even though the effort continued well into the night. So then the story of Orion's disappearance spread. More volunteers and a team of geologists even joined in so that they could dig up to see if maybe there was a hole in the ground, that he had fallen into some unstable hole or a cave or something. All they found was solid rock, no holes, no crevices, no cave-ins, no nothing. So over the next couple of weeks, Mrs. Williamson and her son, they could hear Orion's voice calling for help. Each time they would rush out into the field searching for him, and they found nothing. Well, eventually his voice faded away into a whisper and then disappeared forever. And after weeks of searching, the judge in the town declared him as dead.
No.
Yes. And about a year after the incident, it is said that a circle of dead grass appeared to mark the spot of his disappearance. They never found him again. They never found any bones. Nothing was ever located of him. Then enters a German scientist named Maximilian Hearn, and he is an author of a book called The Disappearance and Theory Thereof. He speculated that Orion walked into a spot of universal ether, and he believed that these places lasted just a few seconds and could completely destroy all matter within them.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Another scientist theorized a magnetic field had disintegrated Orion's atomic structure and sent him into another dimension.
Shit.
Yes. Several years later, there was a fictional story written about the incident. They changed the person, Orion's name and where it occurred, but now it sort of lives on in this legend, in this fake story. But the real story of what happened is what I told you.
That is like a really terrifying story because it's real. And just imagine like someone you love being taken away from you and you see it and you can't make any sense of it.
Right. And he just disappeared. And it immediately made me think of Missing 411, which I know I talk about a lot, but it made me think of that, even though this isn't on some sort of federal land or anything like that. It was just in a field across the way from his home.
Yeah, it made me think that. It made me think, okay, something singeing the ground. Is that some sort of alien tech?
Right.
It
Was he
made
taken up? Yeah. Who
Yeah, was
knows?
he taken up, beamed up? It made me think of
Mm-hmm.
fairy lore and fairy circles and how they were known for disappearing children, not
Right.
necessarily full-grown adults, right? Because he was an adult.
Right. Mm-hmm. He was an
Um,
adult.
but it is scaring me because that is just so sad and tragic to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to believe you again?
Right. But it was in all the newspapers.
Hmm.
There are articles after articles about it. So on this one, I felt like I could find a lot of information that this story actually happened.
Hmm.
Um,
What year again?
but it was 1854.
1854?
Yes, July
Wow.
1854. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's insane.
So to me, I was like, shoot, time slip.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right though, because I was thinking that too since we just recently did the episode. So like, did
Yeah,
he go back into a time and he just never
right,
got the opportunity to back? Because
right.
that's something we didn't mention in our time slip episode is like how lucky those people were to come back. But is this a
Hmm.
case where someone really did go to a different time and they didn't come back? Like who's in
Right,
control of that?
right. And that the German scientist Maximilian Herns saying that he slipped into universal ether,
Right.
I was like, that's basically the spirit realm. So he just blipped into there, disintegrated it, and turned into a soul that left, but no
It
sign of
sounds
his
so
body.
sad. Like he just got
Hmm.
obliterated immediately.
Right. And if this kind of thing happens randomly, I don't know. And the fact that in the story they made it sound like he just turned around and he like maybe he knew he was going to go through that. He turned around and waved to his neighbors and then went through the hole like he knew it was going to happen.
You think he might have known?
Maybe.
That would be weird too. He's like, I've been waiting for this moment. It's happening. You're
Right.
taking me.
Bye. No more debt.
Yeah, no more body pain.
Yeah, I'm done. No more work.
That's a really, really trippy tale.
Yes.
Thanks for haunting my dreams.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to something more light, like Hell's Gate
Okay.
Bridge.
Yes.
So Hell's Gate Bridge is in Oxford, Alabama, and the name is basically what the legend is. So it's said that if you stop on the bridge, turn around, the road behind you will look like the fiery gates of hell. And if that's not some
Wow.
Alabama shit that's going to scare you in the Bible Belt, I don't know what is. So apparently many years ago there was a young couple. They lost their lives on this bridge, and this story is dated back to the 1950s when a young couple drove their car off a bridge and drowned, much like the Crybaby Hollow. But on a dark night, if you stop on the bridge and turn off all the lights, a member of the couple will get into the vehicle with you, leaving nothing but a wet spot on the seat.
What the heck?
That is the urban
Whoa.
legend, I'd say, portion of the tale. Now, unfortunately, the bridge is no longer open to traffic. I don't know if I would say unfortunately. I would say thank
Right.
the maker. You're not going down Hell Bridge anymore.
Right.
It was closed in 2005, although a lot of paranormal people go there on foot. And there were plans to demolish it, so it might end up disappearing from the local, place as a place to actually go and do investigations, and might just be kind of go down as a legend that there was once a bridge here, but now there's a diner. Like, who knows what's going to happen in the
Right.
future? But yeah, I think that's just one of those tales that is just so common: the tragedy in the bridge and the someone who died on the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the whole hell thing, I feel like that's a big reach. I don't even know why I don't believe it.
Right.
I'm not thinking that's true.
Maybe it was just a trick of the eye. Like maybe the sunset was setting in a way that made it look like it was on fire.
Yeah, maybe.
You
never know.
Never know.
I'd like to think, like, what does it matter what way you're going on the bridge, north or south,
Mm-hmm.
or is it just like always behind you is hell?
Mm-hmm. You're like, oh no, I'm going into hell. I'm like, it's all the people who live there. Like, oof.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in hell. Who knows?
Who knows?
So that's just like a short meh kind of, I'd say wah wah kind of story, because I'm just like, it's not that interesting.
Right.
What's your
I
next
think
one?
that
Or what were we gonna say?
I was going to say, I think that my next two are sort of that way, sort of not. My next one is William Winston House, which is in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Let's see, it started getting built in 1824 and was completed in 1833. And on November 22nd, 1874, a tornado came down and it hit the home, covering the lady of the house, Judith Winston, in some debris. Her sons located her and were able to pull her from the wreckage. They took her into one of the front rooms of the home where she died.
Okay.
The home was purchased by the Deschler High School in 1948. It was restored and is now a museum and an event space. And some of the spirit activity that they have is that chairs will be rattling, move themselves. Whenever a storm comes, it appears that the wallpaper or the wall in the front room of the home is crying. They call it the weeping wall.
Oh.
The ghost of William Winston, the guy who had the home built, has been seen at the top of the stairs or wandering the halls. And at night, people see wispy white figures in the windows.
Creepy.
Yeah. So, a sad tragedy of something happening. A tornado hit the home. The home kind of went desolate. Then the home was purchased and refurbished. And a ghost is there now.
I wonder if the refurbishing is just kind of like kicking up the activity.
Well, it was refurbished in 1948, so it was restored. So that's a long time ago now.
Right, I guess so. Not really correlated.
Yeah, but the fact that people still see and hear things, and the crying wall, I don't know if that's just an urban legend or because I didn't find any pictures of anything, but still a fun little story.
Right, just one of those many legends that just goes down.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm going to go out on kind of like a tiny blip of a legend, and I could not find more on this legend, so someone from Alabama, let me know. There is a legend of a headless man in Stringfellow Memorial Hospital. This is in Anniston, Alabama, and I guess there's two ghosts, but all I could find on Google was that it's the founder of the hospital, Mary Stringfellow. She was, I guess, an organ player in her, spare time. And the nurses say that if you're working on the third shift, you can hear the organ being played in a chapel. But if you go to look, there's nobody there. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I love the idea of ghost music playing. That's something we've heard before from listeners actually report on. Right. And then the headless guy, there was a man who committed suicide in one of the rooms by shooting himself in the head with a shotgun, which sounds really hard to do. Patients have said on numerous occasions that you can see the body of a headless man with blood on the wall in the corner of that room. That would be the worst room to stay in.
Yeah,
worst.
They should just not open that room up to anybody.
Can you imagine if you're just like on some sort of drugs, just feeling like crap in a hospital bed, you're already feeling like shit, and you see a headless guy?
I think hospitals are haunted in general anyways, because a lot of death occurs there. I don't know if it's that they're haunted by actual spirits or if it's the energy of the places. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that there is something going on in the hospitals.
Right. Yeah. I've definitely heard that too from nurses who have had people that they know passed on their shift, and then shortly after, like, activity happens in that room or continues happening ever since that person passed in that room. So there's something to be said about vicinity of death and ghosts.
Mm-hmm. They should just let us go in with our white sage sticks and Palo Santo so that we can sage it all. That's all that needs to happen so they can move on.
I wonder if it's that simple, if we could just sage out the hospital. And sage is like, we talked about how it's good for the air, and it actually cleans the air and any kind of like diseases and viruses in the air. So that would be cool if they could just do saging as part of the disinfecting process, but I don't know if any nurses got time for that.
Right. Or if it would be cleansely enough to do in a hospital.
Yeah, they would have to do it in addition to everything else.
Yeah. So I have one more story. It's a good one to kind of go out on. It's at the Moundville Archaeological Park in Moundville, Alabama. It sits on 185 acres. There's a museum, an archaeological lab, and has 29 platform mounds around a rectangular plaza. And these mounds were built by native people that lived in the area between the years 1000 and 1450 AD.
Nice. Indian mounds.
Yes. And it's believed that over 1,000 people lived on the mounds, and then another about 10,000 outside of the community.
That's how big they were?
Yes, that's how big they were. And in 1964, they made it into a historical site. The museum houses a lot of native artifacts and other natural history of the area. But some of the spirit activity is mostly just strange lights surrounding the mounds at nighttime. Like they can see lights moving from mound to mound. And then they hear the sound of drums playing throughout the area.
Ooh.
Yeah. And in the daytime, many people see like residual activity, such as natives walking from mound to mound.
Awesome. So they're just still inhabiting that place. And that's
right.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it sounds amazing to me. It sounds beautiful, like somewhere I'd really want to go.
Right, because it's not a headless guy. It's not like a tragic drowning, some girl dying. You know, it's just like people who are living this lifestyle that sadly was kind of robbed from them eventually.
Right.
And to be able to go back in time by just seeing ghosts, essentially, and seeing them just going about their everyday, that would be really a neat little blip to see.
Right. And it said, like, when I was reading about the mounds, it was like, not only did they live there, but in the rectangular part down below the mounds, that's where they did all of their rituals and their dances and their parties and eating and kind of communal stuff together. So everybody would gather in this one rectangular space and do these things together, upwards of 11,000 people in a space. So a lot of energy.
That is a lot of energy going on and radiating out.
Yeah.
So
right, for sure. Kind of a beautiful little story, I would think.
Yeah, that's a good find. It definitely stands out from the rest that are very much tragedy based on my end anyway. Right.
I love the thought of hearing ghostly drums. I would just be like, yes, sign me up.
I'd be like, Jumanji really is happening if I just started hearing drumming.
I love it.
I would definitely not play Jumanji.
No, not at all.
No.
I feel like we're already kind of playing it in a way.
Right, exactly. So no more.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is Alabama, people. I swear, if you guys have any other states that you think we should tackle, we are down. Point us in the direction of the phenomenon that we should be, putting a microscope on and examining, because we're always open to hearing what you guys see, experience, what you're near. Let us know.
Absolutely. I'd even be down to do another country, because there's just so much I haven't seen and done, I feel like, in my life, that I love researching it all. So yeah, Send us that stuff.
Anywhere.
All right.
So you can always find us every Wednesday for new episodes. You can find us anywhere podcasts can be found, and send in those emails to cousinscoven2@gmail.com. And if you want to hear more from us and get that bonus content after show, come find us on our Patreon. All of our links will be found below, and we also have some merch. So hope to see you there.
Yes, may you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and join each other. Blessings to all.